You've made it to the soft scoop, where the headlines are soft and the stories are slower, and the goal is simple, to help you relax, unwind, and maybe even drift off. Let's catch up. Quietly. Once upon a time, space travel was something you watched from the ground. A distant dream reserved for a select few with training, timing, and just the right politics. But today, space has become something else, a statement, a spectacle, and sometimes a conversation starter. In early 2025, that conversation was reignited when Blue Origin, the spaceflight company founded by Jeff Bezos, launched an all-female crew aboard its New Shepard rocket. The passengers included broadcaster Gayle King, singer Katy Perry, former engineer Aisha Bowe, activist Amanda Nguyen, pilot and philanthropist Carrie-Anne Flynn, and the woman behind the mission itself, Lauren Sanchez. It was meant to be a moment of celebration, a milestone in visibility. 6 women from different walks of life, gently lifting off the earth together. But not everyone saw it that way. Tonight, we're taking a quiet look at what happened next. The praise, the backlash, and the questions that still linger in the air like stardust. Space exploration has evolved dramatically from the days of government-funded missions and crew-cut astronauts reading from mission protocols. The 2020s ushered in what historians now call the second space race, not between competing nations, but between billionaire-backed private companies. Virgin Galactic, founded by Richard Branson, made headlines in 2021 when Branson himself ventured to the edge of space aboard VSS Unity. Just days later, Jeff Bezos followed suit on Blue Origin's first crewed flight. Meanwhile, Elon Musk's SpaceX took a different approach, focusing on orbital missions and partnerships with NASA to transport astronauts to the International Space Station. These weren't just technical achievements. They were carefully crafted media moments, designed to capture imagination and inspire awe. Public reactions to these early commercial flights were mixed. Many celebrated the technological innovation and the opening of space to more than just government astronauts. Others questioned the carbon footprint of these ventures, the immense resources required, and whether billionaires were simply finding new ways to display their wealth rather than addressing earthly problems. The all-female mission was conceived with explicit intentions that went beyond mere space tourism. Lauren Sanchez, partnering closely with Blue Origin's leadership, envisioned the flight as a deliberate statement about women's place in the future of space exploration. Internal documents later revealed that the company had been planning this mission for over a year, carefully selecting participants who represented different domains of influence: media, entertainment, science, advocacy, aviation, and business. Blue Origin hoped to accomplish several goals simultaneously: generate positive press after criticism of billionaire space tourism, inspire a new generation of girls to pursue STEM careers, and position itself as more socially conscious than its competitors. Some insiders also suggested the timing was strategic, coming just as Congress was debating new regulations for commercial spaceflight companies, though Blue Origin consistently denied any political motivation behind the mission. The brevity of the actual spaceflight became one of its most criticized aspects. The entire mission, from liftoff to touchdown, lasted just 10 minutes and 18 seconds, with only 3 minutes and 41 seconds of actual weightlessness at the edge of space. Critics seized on this short duration, with one viral social media post calculating it as roughly $1 million per minute spent in space. Science communicator Neil deGrasse Tyson noted in an interview that while participants technically crossed the Kármán line, the internationally recognized boundary of space at 100 kilometers altitude, they experienced more of a space taste than a space meal. The women themselves acknowledged the brevity, but emphasized its profound impact regardless of duration. Time becomes irrelevant when you're seeing something that changes your entire perspective, Gayle King later explained. It could have been 3 minutes or 3 hours. The effect on my worldview would have been the same. Still, some aerospace experts questioned whether such brief suborbital hops deserve the same cultural weight as longer orbital missions that require more extensive training and contribute more substantively to scientific knowledge. Blue Origin positioned itself somewhere in the middle of its competitors, less focused on the deeper space aspirations of SpaceX, but offering a more technically sophisticated experience than Virgin Galactic's spaceplane. Their New Shepard vehicle, named after America's first astronaut Alan Shepard, was designed for suborbital tourism, scientific research, and importantly, for symbolism. While NASA missions remain bound by congressional budgets and public scrutiny, private ventures like Blue Origin operate with different constraints and different freedoms. They can select passengers based on criteria beyond technical qualifications, they can craft missions around stories they want to tell, and in early 2025, Blue Origin decided to tell a story about women in space. The all-female crew wasn't randomly assembled. Each member brought her own narrative to the mission, creating a tapestry of experiences that Lauren Sanchez hoped would inspire girls and women around the world. Gayle King, at 70, brought decades of media influence to the flight. As the editor-at-large of O, the Oprah magazine, and co-host of CBS This Morning, King had spent her career elevating important conversations into the public consciousness. Her trademark warmth and curiosity made her an ideal chronicler of the experience. "I have interviewed presidents and prisoners," she said before the flight, "but I never thought I'd interview the stars, and while among them." Katy Perry's inclusion raised the most eyebrows initially. Known primarily for her music career and pop cultural presence, some questioned what qualified her for such an opportunity. What many didn't know was Perry's long-standing involvement with UNICEF as a Goodwill ambassador since 2013, her advocacy for LGBTQ+ rights, and her financial support for education initiatives. "I want to use this experience to amplify the voices of young girls who dream beyond boundaries," Perry explained in the pre-flight press conference. Aisha Bowe represented a different kind of journey. A former NASA engineer who worked at the Ames Research Center, Bowe later founded STEM Board, a technology company creating opportunities for underrepresented groups in STEM fields. Her transition from government aerospace to entrepreneurship embodied the very shift happening in space exploration itself. "When I was growing up, I didn't see engineers who looked like me," Bowe often said. "This flight isn't about me going to space, it's about showing the next generation they belong there too." Amanda Nguyen's presence added profound depth to the mission. As a Nobel Peace Prize nominee and the founder of RISE, a nonprofit supporting sexual assault survivors, Nguyen had already changed the lives of millions through her successful advocacy for the Sexual Assault Survivors' Rights Act. A trained civilian astronaut herself, Nguyen saw space as both literal and metaphorical. "Looking down at Earth from space," she would later write, "you see no borders, no divisions, just one fragile home that holds all our stories." Carrie-Anne Flynn brought extensive aviation experience as an accomplished pilot with over 3,000 flight hours and founder of the Wings for Humanity Foundation, which provides medical transport to underserved regions. Her technical knowledge and humanitarian work bridged multiple aspects of the mission's stated goals. "Flight has always been about transcending limitations," Flynn said, "whether that's gravity or the artificial limits we place on human potential." And finally, there was Lauren Sanchez herself, the architect of the mission. Her journey from Emmy-winning journalist to helicopter pilot and eventually to space advocate defied simple categorization. As the partner of Jeff Bezos, she faced immediate skepticism about her qualifications, despite her extensive aviation background and media experience. "This mission is deeply personal for me," Sanchez said. "It's about creating a moment that expands what's possible in people's minds." Together, these 6 women represented different generations, backgrounds, and paths to the launch pad. What united them was a shared belief in the power of visibility. The flight itself went exactly as planned, at least technically. New Shepard lifted off from Blue Origin's West Texas launch facility on a clear Tuesday morning. The capsule separated from the booster at approximately 250,000 feet. The women experienced about 3 minutes of weightlessness, floating and gazing through the capsule's oversized windows at the curvature of the Earth below. The booster returned to land upright on its designated pad, and minutes later the capsule gently descended under parachutes to touch down in the Texas desert. 10 minutes from launch to landing, a brief encounter with the cosmos. The crew emerged from the capsule smiling, emotional. They embraced each other and the ground team. Some shed tears. All appeared profoundly moved by what they had just experienced, that rare perspective of seeing our planet as a whole, without borders or divisions, suspended in the blackness of space. "It changes you," Gayle King told reporters afterward, her voice still trembling with emotion. "Not just seeing Earth from above, but feeling yourself break free from it, even for a moment. It was one of the most meaningful experiences of my life." The images were powerful. 6 women, arms linked, looking skyward. 6 women whose journey had just connected them to the fewer than 700 humans who have crossed the boundary into space. 6 women who now shared a perspective that most of humanity will never experience firsthand. But as their feet returned to Earth, so did the complexity of earthly discourse. The backlash began almost immediately, spreading across social media platforms with the speed and intensity that has become characteristic of our digital age. "Congratulations on the billionaire joyride while people can't afford insulin," wrote one Twitter user in a post that received over 50,000 likes. Another commented, "Female empowerment isn't when rich women do expensive things together." Emily Ratajkowski, the model and actress known for her outspoken feminist views, posted, "True feminism would be using those millions to fund women's health care and paid maternity leave, not floating around for Instagram." Her comment was shared over 30,000 times. Comedian Amy Schumer took a more satirical approach, posting a mock fundraiser, "Help send me and 5 friends to target the way billionaires send their girlfriends to space." The joke resonated with many who felt the mission embodied a particular kind of tone-deaf privilege. Actress Olivia Wilde shared a thoughtful critique. "I'm all for women in space, but I question whether true representation happens at the invitation of billionaires. Genuine progress comes when women have equal access to power, not when they're granted permission to visit it briefly." Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy's comment cut perhaps the deepest. "Let's not call this astronaut training. Let's call it what it is, a $300,000 photo op." His statement reflected the government's increasingly complex relationship with private space ventures, supportive of innovation but wary of hollow spectacles. Meanwhile, climate activists calculated the carbon footprint of the launch and compared it to the annual emissions of dozens of average American families. Environmental groups questioned whether such ventures could ever be justified in an era of climate crisis. These criticisms weren't simply about this particular flight. They tapped into broader societal tensions around wealth inequality, climate responsibility, and the very meaning of progress. They echoed similar concerns raised during the Apollo era, when poet Gil Scott-Heron famously wrote "Whitey on the Moon" to contrast space achievement with ongoing racial inequality and poverty. Indeed, Amanda Nguyen's thoughtful reference to Scott-Heron's work in her post-flight remarks showed an awareness of these tensions. "I carried the weight of that poem with me," she said. "The question it raises is still valid. How do we celebrate human achievement while acknowledging human suffering? I don't have the answer, but I believe we must hold both truths simultaneously." The debate around the Blue Origin flight revealed something important about our relationship with space in the 2020s. Unlike the Cold War space race, which united Americans behind a national goal despite domestic problems, modern space ventures exist in a more fractured cultural landscape. For many young women, especially those interested in STEM fields, seeing the all-female crew was genuinely inspiring. Social media filled with posts from parents sharing their daughters' excitement. Teachers reported students suddenly showing interest in physics and astronomy. A video of a 9-year-old girl watching the launch with tears of joy received millions of views. Dr. Ellen Stofan, former NASA chief scientist, noted, "Representation matters profoundly in fields where certain groups have been historically excluded. When girls see women in space, it expands what they believe is possible for themselves." The historical context gives weight to this perspective. Of the nearly 700 humans who have traveled to space since Yuri Gagarin's first flight in 1961, only about 70 have been women, roughly 10%. The first American woman in space, Sally Ride, didn't fly until 1983, more than 20 years after Alan Shepard's first suborbital flight. The gender disparity in space has been stark and persistent. But critics posed important questions about the substance behind the symbolism. Was a brief suborbital flight by carefully selected individuals really advancing women in STEM? Would the millions spent on the mission have created more opportunity if directed towards scholarships, research grants, or educational programs? Jessica Watkins, a NASA astronaut with a PhD in geology who spent months on the International Space Station conducting scientific research, offered a measured response when asked about the flight. "Every person who experiences space becomes an ambassador for Earth's fragility and beauty. That has value, but sustainable progress requires systemic support for women in aerospace at every level, from middle school science classes to mission control to spacecraft design." Perhaps the most curious aspect of the post-flight conversation was the emergence of conspiracy theories claiming the mission never happened at all. These theories spread rapidly on platforms like TikTok and fringe forums, with amateur video analysts claiming to spot inconsistencies in the footage or questioning the physics of what was shown. "The shadows are wrong," claimed one popular TikTok creator with over 2 million followers. "And notice how they never show continuous footage of the launch to landing? That's because it's all filmed on a soundstage." Another viral post asserted, "None of these women have the technical training to go to space. This is just elaborate PR for Bezos and his girlfriend." While these claims were easily debunked by experts, they spread with remarkable speed, accumulating millions of views within days of the flight. The phenomenon revealed something troubling about our digital information environment: the ease with which doubt can be manufactured and disseminated. Dr. Joan Donovan, research director at Harvard's Shorenstein Center on Media Politics and Public Policy, explained, "Space has long been fertile ground for conspiracy thinking because it's simultaneously very technical and deeply emotional. Most people can't verify space achievements firsthand, so trust in institutions becomes essential. In an era of declining institutional trust, especially around elite-driven projects, conspiracy theories flourish." The theories also reflected a gendered dimension of technological skepticism. There's a long history of questioning women's technical accomplishments or suggesting they must have had male assistants, noted historian Margaret Whitecomb, curator at the Smithsonian's National Air and Space Museum. The conspiracies around this mission tapped into that unfortunate tradition. Blue Origin responded by releasing additional footage and technical data from the flight, but for those already inclined towards skepticism, such evidence only fueled further conspiracy thinking. The company eventually chose to focus on the positive impact rather than directly combating every false claim. As the public conversation intensified, the crew members themselves responded in ways that reflected their diverse personalities and perspectives. Gayle King addressed the criticism directly on her CBS morning show. "I understand the concerns about privilege and access. They are valid questions, but I also know what I experienced up there changed me. And I believe sharing that experience, especially as women of color, has value that can't be measured in dollars." Katy Perry chose to respond through art, releasing a song called "Higher Than Heaven" that subtly referenced both the wonder of her space experience and the complexity of returning to a troubled Earth. The lyrics acknowledged the tension. "Saw paradise from way up high, still hear the cries from down below. Can these hands that touch the sky help build a world we all can know?" Aisha Bowe focused on action, announcing a new STEM board initiative that would provide 1,000 scholarships for girls from underrepresented communities to attend space-focused STEM camps. When asked about critics, she responded pragmatically, "I'd rather put my energy into opening doors than defending why I walked through one." Amanda Nguyen wrote a thoughtful essay for The Atlantic entitled "The View from Above," which became widely cited in academic circles for its nuanced exploration of privilege, perspective, and purpose. "Space is not just a place," she wrote. "It's a lens through which we see ourselves differently. The question isn't whether sending people to space is worthwhile, it's how we integrate that expanded perspective into solving our terrestrial challenges." Carrie-Anne Flynn spoke primarily about the technical aspects of the flight, using her platform to explain the engineering achievements behind making space more accessible. She also announced a partnership between her Wings for Humanity Foundation and satellite companies to improve medical supply delivery to remote regions. Lauren Sanchez perhaps faced the most intense scrutiny as the mission's organizer and Bezos' partner. She acknowledged this in a reflective interview. "I understand why some see this as just a rich person's adventure, but I believe in the power of moments that capture imagination. Throughout history, exploration has always begun with the privileged few before expanding to many. My hope is that this flight is part of that progression, not an end in itself." Their varied responses highlighted something important, that even within this carefully selected group, there wasn't a monolithic perspective on what their flight meant or how to address the criticism it generated. As we reflect on this moment from the gentle distance that the soft scoop provides, perhaps we can find a middle path through these polarized reactions. Space exploration has always existed in tension with earthly needs. When Neil Armstrong stepped onto the lunar surface in 1969, approximately 1 in 5 American children lived in poverty. The Apollo program cost roughly $25 billion, about $150 billion in today's dollars, during a period of significant social unrest and economic inequality. Yet many of our most significant environmental insights, including much of our understanding of climate change, come from space-based observations. The famous Earthrise photo taken during Apollo 8 is credited with catalyzing the environmental movement by showing humanity our planet's beauty and fragility from a new perspective. Modern private space ventures exist within this same tension, though with different dynamics. They represent both remarkable technical achievement and troubling inequality of access. They inspire young minds while raising questions about resource allocation. They can simultaneously be genuine accomplishments and carefully crafted publicity. Perhaps that's why reactions to the Blue Origin flight were so diverse. The mission existed at the intersection of multiple conversations about gender and representation, wealth and access, science and spectacle, progress and priorities. What do moments like this say about our collective dreams? How do we balance ambitious human achievements with the needs of those still struggling on Earth? Can symbolic milestones drive substantive change, or do they merely provide the illusion of progress? These questions have no simple answers, but maybe, as we drift toward sleep, we can hold the complexity gently, appreciating the wonder of 6 women touching the stars, while acknowledging the long journey still ahead, to ensure everyone has their feet on solid ground. In the months following the flight, the conversation gradually evolved. The spectacular images from the mission, Earth's curved horizon, 6 women floating weightlessly, their expressions of wonder, found their way into school textbooks and museum exhibitions. Children dressed as astronauts for Halloween with new role models in mind. Applications to aerospace programs from young women saw a modest but measurable increase. Meanwhile, the substantive critiques led to meaningful responses. Several space companies, including Blue Origin, established significant scholarship funds for underrepresented groups in STEM. New attention focused on making space benefits more accessible, from satellite internet for remote communities to environmental monitoring for vulnerable regions. The flight didn't solve gender disparities in aerospace or address wealth inequality, but it became part of a larger ongoing conversation about who space is for and what we do with the perspective it provides. In the end, 6 women went to space. They came back changed. They inspired some, they irritated others, and they reminded all of us that progress is rarely tidy and never unanimous. That's it for tonight's episode of The Soft Scoop. Whether you saw this mission as a step forward or a missed opportunity, we hope this quiet recap helped you breathe a little deeper and think a little softer. Sleep well, the world can wait.